How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another episode of the Win Your Wealth podcast. I am your host, George Almazan. And today, just so that you guys know, I have a camera set up here in my office, and I have sort of a little studio that I've put together for myself. And I'm going to see how this works out. I'm pretty sure the camera is actually going to run out of battery, but I'm going to upload that piece to YouTube and just going to say hi, YouTube. And if you want to watch the rest of the episode, I would highly encourage you to go over to the description box and you will find the links to my Apple podcast or Spotify podcast. And there you'll find the entire thing just in case that video cuts short. But in any case, just wanted to hop on here and just say thank you guys very much for everybody who listened to the first episode. I got, honestly, more people listening to that episode than I thought I would. I think with any one of these projects that kind of get going from the beginning, you don't actually expect that many people to watch you or to listen to you for 30 minutes or so. But I was very pleasantly surprised to see just throughout the week, and well, actually throughout the month that it's been since I recorded the last episode, 3 weeks ago actually. There's been a few people that have listened, so thank you guys very much, and thank you for tuning again to episode number 2. This one is going to be, I think, a lot more practical, and it's going to really, I think, excite some of you and help you guys get started on your financial journey. But for those of you that are interested on finding more information about how you guys can win with money, go to winyourwealth.com. There you'll find all of my different platforms and all the different kinds of ways that you can consume this content. Maybe some will work better for you than a podcast, or maybe some of you like to visually learn, so you guys want to see that on the YouTube channel. Feel free to join there. And if not, that's pretty much all I had for this one. So as you can tell, I'm probably going to be doing a lot less editing because I am actually recording myself, right? I'm recording my video, and that's going to force me to start using less ums and ahs and doing pauses, and really making me feel like I'm actually doing more of a kind of a conversation that I would with somebody, as opposed to just recording with a microphone in front of me, which is what I'm doing. But hopefully to help me be a little bit more animated, I am going to do this just because I know that I'm on camera. Maybe that'll help. We'll see. Hopefully that works out. Let me know your thoughts anyway. You can email me by going to winyourwealth@gmail.com. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into the first segment, which I like to call Tactical Finance. And what I would like to say about this first piece is that for a lot of you that, we all start thinking about money at some point in our lives, and we may get advice from our parents, from teachers, from, a lot of different, maybe even from TV, right? YouTube, other places, about how maybe certain people are making this much money by doing this, or maybe some people are day trading, other people are doing real estate, other people are talking about getting out of debt, and everybody has their own sort of take on this. But what I think most people crave for when they first start out on their journey towards personal finance and just winning with money is, where do you actually get started, right? There's just so much in the world of finance that it could really easily just kind of drown you in terms of information overload. And I want to do this episode or this segment on tactical finance around where to begin. And where I think you guys should begin is 1, knowing where you're at, and 2, knowing where you want to be. Now, the first piece, knowing where you're at, I think needs to come first, and it should take priority. Now, knowing where you're at, what does that mean? Obviously, this is the stage of sort of document collection, right? It's like knowing how much money is in your bank account, what kind of debts you have, are you contributing to retirement, do you have the right kind of life insurance? Those are the kind of things, and a lot of it, it's so much stuff that it can really become overwhelming if you don't have it all kind of collapsed down in one place. So let's talk about what I would recommend for beginning and knowing where you're at. Again, collect documentation, whether this be on paper, whether it be like on Excel or using some kind of online tools, a mixture of tools like maybe mint.com or You Need a Budget, which is ynab.com, or other tools like that, personalcapital.com. Those are all tools that you can use to help collect some of this information. But I have a feeling that if you're doing this for the first time, it's probably going to be best to just, open up your laptop and actually just handwrite this stuff out. And if you're with a spouse, if you have a significant other or somebody that you find as an accountability partner, I would tell you to also involve them in this process. If you're married, obviously, if you live with somebody, it's a must. You absolutely need to involve everybody that lives with you and is your partner in life into this as well. So what are some of the things that you need to collect? So let's get that sorted out. Okay, I think first thing is your bank accounts, right? Sort out all of the different bank accounts you have, and document that somehow. How much money do you have in there? Essentially, just what are the balances? You also probably want to take into account whether or not there are any fees associated to that checking account. So some of these bigger banks like Bank of America, Chase, if you don't have a certain number or a certain amount of money, or if you don't do direct deposit with them, then they're probably charging you $7 to $12 a month. And it may not sound like a lot, but a lot of these banks really, they're kind of pulling a fast one on this one. And there's plenty of banks out there now, online banks, even local credit unions that no longer charge a dime for having a checking account. And I believe that in this day and age, you shouldn't have to pay for a checking account. You really shouldn't. So if you are paying, a monthly just account fee with Chase or with Bank of America, either figure out how that can be negotiated down or figure out how you can maybe move to another bank. Those would be my recommendations. There's no reason why you should stick with a bank that won't offer you a $0 a month checking account. There's my rant on banks. Savings accounts. I would recommend your savings accounts, get all that stuff together. I would also include CDs if you have any CDs on here as well. Collect all that information. That way you know how much is in the savings account, what's the interest rate, and kind of what's the general purpose of that money. Is it just there for just comfort? Is it there for saving for your next car or your next big purchase? Those are the things you kind of want to make sure are solidified. You also want to take into account and find all of the information surrounding your investment accounts. So this includes things like your 401k, 403b, IRAs, annuities, even universal and whole life insurances. I would consider that portion that is the investment portion as an investment. Obviously, it's not just life insurance, it's also quote unquote an investment. I'll talk a little bit, just briefly about that a little bit later, but collect all that money or collect all that documentation. Also figure out how much money or what percentage of your monthly income is going towards retirement. Okay. At some point you want this number to be 15, 20% of your monthly take home pay. If that's not what it is, then no worries. If it's more than that, then it's probably okay. But if you're in debt, you might want to reconsider and make some adjustments. I'll talk about that later again, maybe in this episode, maybe in another episode. But check the balance on your 401k. Are you on track to retirement? And this is an important one. If your company has a 401k match, meaning if you contribute a certain amount of money, they will match literally dollar for dollar your investment back into the plan. It's free money, right? You double your money just like that. If they have that, you want to know how much that is. Is it 3%, 4%, 5%? Because in general, what I would recommend is you should never say no to free money. So 401k matching is free money. If any company offers you 4% or 5% or whatever percent, you got to contribute that because you're literally just doubling your money that way. This is controversial to some financial experts out there, but I think most would agree that you should never say no to free money, and always, at the very minimum, contribute to your 401k match. Okay, make sure you get that first. That's my spiel on that. You also want to collect information about your rent payments or your mortgage payment. And primarily what I'm trying to get at here is you want to figure out whether or not you are house poor, right? Do you have too much house? So it's not really to collect the information. Everybody knows how much they pay in rent. At least I hope they do. But you want to make sure that you fall into the category of your rent or your mortgage being less than 30% of your monthly take-home pay. Okay, so if you make $10,000 a month, let's just call it $10,000, you do not want your rent or your mortgage to be more than $3,000 a month, and that's assuming that $10,000 is after taxes. I'm talking about after taxes, what money lands in your pocket, right, before investing. So that's my spiel on that. Make sure that you are not house poor or rent poor. If you are, then obviously you might need to make some adjustments. You might need to really either hunker down on other categories quite heavily, or you would want to then perhaps look at getting a roommate if you're renting out on your own, or getting another roommate sleeping on the couch. If you have a mortgage, it becomes difficult, right? I wouldn't suggest. The first thing would never be to sell a home. I think that's a lot of disruption, and there's a lot of cost towards that. But if you are going over 35% of your monthly take-home pay going to your house, that's going to be tough. That's going to be really tough to succeed in other areas of your life if you're spending that much money on your house. So just be real with yourself and try to have it less than 30%. The lower, the better, though, right? So if you can get 25%, that would be even better, or less. Gonna take a quick break. We can have a little tea here. This, by the way, is a cup from CBT Nuggets. I don't get any ads or any compensation for saying that. But if you guys are in IT and you're looking for a good training provider online, they're really good. Highly recommend it. All right, so next on this list is budget. If you have a budget, whether it be on a napkin, whether it be on an Excel document, or on mint.com, or you need a budget, I would recommend that you get that, right? And any budget is better than no budget at all. And if you don't have a budget, then that's okay. You're just starting off, right? But you want to have that ready to go if you have it, right? So at least your accountability partner, which I would recommend if you're single. If you don't have one, you can feel free to reach out to me. Maybe we can figure out a way where I can do that for you. And or if you're married or have somebody you live with, a significant other, you definitely want to get them on board as well. Didn't take into account burping and things like that on the podcast. I guess I could always move away from the microphone, right? But yeah, that's the magic of live podcasting. So the next thing that you want to gather, this is really important, insurances. A lot of people, I think, leave this out. You want to make sure that you know the amount that you're paying towards your insurance. The two most important ones right now, and pretty much ever, is going to be your health insurance. The number one reason why people go bankrupt is not because they don't pay their debt. It's because they get in an accident or something happens to their health and they have to go to a hospital and they don't have health insurance. And everybody knows that just staying a night in a hospital is several, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what happened. And you don't want to be caught there. Get health insurance. Make sure you have that. Even if you're self-employed, you cannot afford to go to a hospital for a couple of days without going bankrupt in most cases, right? Get your health insurance, okay? Second, life insurance. The only life insurance that I recommend is term life insurance. Do not get universal. If it does not say term life insurance, that's all it should say. It shouldn't be anything else, nothing fancy. Don't get it. Just get term life insurance. And what term-based insurance is what it sounds like. It's either a 10-year, 20-year, 5-year term, maybe even 30-year term, where if you die anytime within that term, your beneficiaries, I was looking for the word, beneficiaries, will receive the amount of money in that contract agreement. Now, it's really, really simple. You die, they get the money. And it's also really, really inexpensive because it doesn't have any of these gimmicks or these, hey, you're also going to invest this money and this is going to be yours and you can cash it out later. You don't want any of that stuff. You're paying extra for that for a very mediocre investment, okay? You want your insurances to be insurances and your investments to be investments. That's my take on that. Before you cancel any life insurances, be sure that you get the new one first and then cancel your old ones. One of the benefits of that is if you have a whole life insurance and you cancel it, you probably have the amount of money, if you've had it for a long time, you might have some money that they'll send you a check for. You might get some money from Universal or whole life if you've had it for a long time. If you want to keep whole life or universal life, which I don't recommend, don't spend too much money on it, is what I'm going to say. That's my general advice. You also want to make sure that your term life insurance, the cash amount is, meaning when you die, this is what your beneficiaries get. You want that amount to be 10 to 15 times your take-home pay. So if you're an individual that makes $100,000 a year, $100,000 times 10, that's $1 million policy to 15%. So $1 million to $1.5 million policy. You can get a 20-year term and see where you're at. Again, I think you'll be very, very surprised at how cheap it is to get that much insurance. You need to get at least 10 times your annual take-home pay, because the purpose of life insurance is that if something happens to you or to your spouse or to both of you, that the remaining beneficiaries can replace your income. And the only way that they can replace your income is if they have a bulk amount of money where they can invest it and make 10%, 8% a year on it, right? Or conservatively make maybe 7% a year. And you can do that, and that would pretty much translate to your annual income. So even if you're a housewife, if you're somebody that stays home, takes care of the kids, even if you don't, you provide a service to your spouse, you should at least consider getting $250,000 coverage, maybe even $500,000 in coverage. Very inexpensive, especially if you don't smoke and you're in shape. And if you're not, stop smoking. And 2, try to get in shape. I'm trying to myself, so do your best, okay? Debt. The area of debt. This is a really important one, and I think it's probably one of the things that captivates a lot of people towards looking at their personal finances more seriously, right? So you want to make sure that you list out all of your debt, and you want to have all this information. You want to have, of course, the name of the debt, right? Who owns the debt, balance, the remaining balance on the debt, the interest rate, the monthly payment, and the remaining time, or the maturity date, meaning how much time is left before you pay off that debt, assuming you did minimum payments. You want to get all your credit cards, your personal loans, your car loans, your student loans, even your mortgage here. I would say just get it, make sure you have it on hand. That way you know this information, okay? The other thing, paychecks. You want to make sure you get a couple of your paychecks, any 1099 or stuff that you get from side income. You want to get that too. And the reason why you want to do this is you want to check your 401k contributions, right? Remember I mentioned earlier how much of that money is going toward your 401k contributions. And if you have a match, it's going to say somewhere on that paycheck, or at least on the paycheck form, not necessarily the physical paycheck, but you will have all the line items of this is what you contributed to your 401k. this was a match that we put in there. That's where you can get that information from. And then second, you're going to get information about all of the deductions that are happening, right? So your employer might give you certain insurances for free, and that's great. If they give you insurances for free, take them. Anything for free, take it. But there are some insurances that they charge you and they automatically enroll you that you may not necessarily want to be in. You know, things like I call them gimmicky insurance, things like cancer insurance, like accidental death insurance, that could be costing you a lot of money. And if you have things like dental and vision, in some cases, it may be better actually shopping for that stuff outside of work. In some cases, I found if you don't have issues with your vision or things like that, maybe you don't want to pay for vision if it's very expensive. That's something I would consider. But again, those are kind of just do kind of a temperature check, especially on those gimmicky insurances. If you're paying a lot of money for them every month, or a significant, I'm going to put that in quotes because that might mean a different thing to you, amount of money per month, I would reconsider. But just always make sure that you have the most important insurances, which I mentioned is life, health insurance. Outside of that, if they provide you with short-term disability for free, take it. If they have long-term disability through work, it's usually a good deal. I would say take long-term disability, pay for that. That will cover you in the case where after 3 months or 6 months of being disabled, after that amount of time and you can't work, that will cover your paycheck up to a certain amount. That's really good. Short-term disability, if you're paying for that, I would recommend you get rid of that. You want your emergency fund to be your short-term disability plan, okay? Not short-term disability, okay? That's my spiel on insurances and paychecks. And then I'm going to take another sip of this tea. You want to make sure that you collect your tax return information. So if you filed last year, the year before that, you want to get that information because you want to make sure that you are checking how much you're paying in taxes, right, throughout the year. If you're getting a extremely large refund check, you may want to make adjustments to your W-4 form if you want to. The way I see it is tax return at the end of the year in April, it's not free money. It's your money that you're giving the government for free, and they're returning it to you because you overpaid them. But they don't give you any interest or any benefit for doing that. So if you get a huge return, I would say maybe go and look at your W-4 form. And I have a YouTube video actually, which I can link in the show notes, all about that. So you can go there if you're interested in listening to that. And last but not least, really is all around your financial goals. Your financial goals document. You may not have this on paper yet, but at this point, you want to make sure that you have this on paper. Goals that are written on paper are goals that get achieved, okay? That's just something about the universe. That's just the way it works. It's what I've found to be the case almost every time I write down a goal and I have it and I look at it and I stare at it and I actually follow through on it. It happens, okay? And every time I break that rule, it doesn't work. I don't know what it is, but please write down your financial goals. If your goal is to be debt-free, I want you to be debt-free. If your goal is to double your income, I want you to gain the skills to double your income. I really want you to do that. If you want to contribute more towards retirement so that you can retire at age 40 or age 50, I want you to do that. If you want to just live a comfortable life, enjoy your life, but also be financially responsible in the sense where you're going to retire and you're going to be comfortable for the rest of your life and be a burden to nobody, that's what I want you to do. And this is the document where you're going to write that down. It's really important emotionally and just tactically. Having those goals written is really, really important.